Good morning and welcome to another episode of Talking to Artists, a casual conversation with artists that for art lovers and would-be artists and aspiring artists can help kind of understand a little bit of what goes on in the life of a working artist. So I'm very excited today to have Sheila Davis join us. She is a very dynamic landscape painter, and I got really I would say totally absorbed in one of her YouTube videos she did about washing her oil brushes, which I just thought was kind of fascinating. But I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm just going to see if I can just get Sheila to come right in. Just jump right in. And hopefully she'll, oh, here she comes. Hey.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Am I
I'm
coming
great.
in okay?
Perfect.
I don't think I'm very far from you right now.
Well, where are you? You're on Leaside, I think you said.
My mom's in Leaside, yeah.
Yeah, my studio is at Leaside, just at Laird and Eglinton.
Yeah, and she's just at Millwood and Southville.
Oh,
So not
yeah.
too far at all, yeah.
That's cool. So what are you doing there then? Painting?
She had a new recliner delivered yesterday, so I came to help her move furniture and try it out.
And how is it? Is it good?
It's very comfortable. It looks huge right now, but it's quite comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, my father-in-law had one delivered, and it was like this great red leather chair, but also lifted up, so he could actually it helped him stand up, which was pretty
hers is
crazy.
Not that fancy. We went to Ethan Allen. In fact, I keep telling her she needed a recliner because she's 88 and she's threatened to disinherit me now if I keep reminding her of her age. So, anyhow, it's lovely. So it's quite, from Ethan Allen, it's going to be gorgeous, right?
Oh yeah, that's great. Well,
yeah, I made her buy.
You can have a big.
About 2 months ago, I bought her new TV cabinet, and we ordered her a 50-inch smart TV.
Ooh.
So she went from a 32-inch smart TV to a 50-inch smart TV. So because I can't see that far anymore, so
Yeah. Well, we had the same thing at the cottage. My parents had, just a bit of those basic, cathode ray tubes, I guess. The TV was like 40 years old, right? And the whole point was, well, it's at the cottage, so if someone's going to break in and steal it, they're not going to want to steal the TV. But I'm like, okay, that's fine, except for the fact I can't see it. The sound is shitty, and it just isn't working.
Yeah,
So,
and once you have it, you can't go back. That's for sure.
Oh, totally. No. And I remember my parents were like, I don't think we need a better TV. And then we get a bigger one in there. It's like, this is so much better. Why didn't we do this earlier?
Yeah, tell me about it for sure. Yeah. Is your hair pink?
It is, yeah.
I love it.
Thanks, yeah.
It's
I did.
Cool. It's getting so long, eh?
It is, and I was just getting bored, and I was actually cleaning up my studio because I had a whole bunch of stuff that was left over from Kaleidoscope, like 4,000 paper clips and stuff. So I'm cleaning a bunch of stuff out, and I came across this Manic Panic pink, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do that today.
I thought you were going to say you used acrylic paint, which I guess would work.
No. Yeah.
Probably wash it through.
I'm not sure it lasts very long.
Quinacridone red in your hair, why not?
Yeah.
It's a stainer. It would probably work.
I used to do that I used to have a white dog, and when we did art shows, I'd take that pink chalk and paint him up.
I never thought that. I have 2 white dogs.
They're great for a palette.
Well, I've had one that's been varnished before. So yeah, he's not too impressed with that. Yeah, I was taking a liter of varnish out of my cupboard and whacked the cupboard, by accident, and the whole thing went flying, and he happened to be standing there. So now as soon as I start swinging panels around or pulling out packing boxes, they just leave. They go to the door and they want out. Yeah. They don't want to be in there. Yeah.
Well, that's safe. Yeah.
Yes,
I know our dog too used to get or you step in paint, and then you have these little, turquoise paw prints on your wooden floor.
Yes.
Not so good.
We have cats that like to do that. So I have a cover for my palette when I'm not painting. Because, of course, it's right outside a window, and there's birds right there. So if they happen to get in the studio, they take a run for that window. So, yeah. Spent an afternoon cleaning cadmium red light out of an oriental carpet once.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
No.
And, of course, you paint oil, too, right?
Yes,
so it doesn't
I do.
dry so quickly.
Yes. No, it doesn't dry, and it grinds in nicely,
Yeah, that sounds kind of brutal.
Yeah, it's very brutal. Yeah, so going around with odorless mineral spirits trying to get this paint out of the carpet. Yeah, I should have just left it and done the rest of the carpet so it matched.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I paint in acrylic, so it's pretty fast. And the reality is, if it gets on the floors, you can kind of mostly peel it up. So it's a pain, but it's not a huge issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I was telling you, but probably about
5 or 6 weeks ago, you posted a video of you cleaning your oil brushes.
Oh, my container.
I was totally enthralled, I have to tell you. Like,
changing the container, getting the sludge out of the container.
Yeah, I didn't even know sludge was a thing. So.
Yeah, sludge is, and some artists actually keep it and use it for an underpainting or something. Yeah, it's nasty stuff. Yeah, well, but it does. Yeah, and eventually, what happens is like your container. Mine are big. Mine are about this big, about 12 inches tall, and they have a basket in them. So all the sludge sits down under the basket. But when it starts getting really full, then your cleaning fluid, be it water or whatever, doesn't get clean, right? You've got all this sediment floating around in it. So about once a year, I have to change it out. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so I work with a palette knife, so I just wipe them off on my pants, you know.
Yeah. Well, I said you can always tell an acrylic artist from an oil artist, because acrylic artists wear all these funky clothes with paint all over them, and oil artists wear aprons. Because you can't go in the house with paint all over your clothes. That's a major no-no.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know my sister does that, and of course you get paint on everything. But it was funny. I was talking to Lisa Hickey a couple months ago, and she paints sometimes acrylic, sometimes oil, and she was doing oil. And she said, "Yeah, I can't believe it. I came in here and I couldn't find my palette, and I was looking for my palette, and then she realized she sat on it. So she had all this red paint all over the ass of her pants.
Oh no!
Like, that's not a good look."
So I guess if you travel to your studio, you should always keep an extra pair of clothes in your studio, because you couldn't wear those on the subway to get home or anything, right? So
No, for sure.
Our backyard's very private, so I could probably run to the house butt naked and nobody would see it.
That's that eccentric artist in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the neighbors would just go, "Oh, there she goes again." Yeah.
That's right.
No, we have 10-foot hedges around our property, so nobody can see through.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. We've never had a backyard where we haven't had total privacy. I could never move to a subdivision. I'd be arrested in no time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my uncle came over to stay from England, and they go to nudist colonies and stuff like that. And I said to my mom, it's like, okay, you have to tell your brother that he can't do that in Toronto, because I have a pool, right? But of course, I'm in Toronto, so I mean, although it's pretty private, I mean, people want to watch. It's like, you can't really do that in the middle of the day when there's kids about in the city.
That's true. Yeah. Unless you want to get rid of them, get them arrested. Good way to have that.
That seems like a lot of work. Yeah. It seems like easier ways to get rid of people. Yeah.
So what have you been up to other than this?
Well, this has taken up quite a bit of my time. I'm actually in the process of trying to figure out how to convert it to an actual podcast, because a lot of people said that they tend to listen versus watch it.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of exciting. So I've figured out how to pull out the audio and kind of go through and get rid of all the ums and ahs. I didn't realize I'd made so many of those as I was talking and stuff.
Everybody does that, yes.
Yeah, I think they do.
Justin Trudeau, he goes,
Yeah.
Does,
and I was listening to somebody recently, and
he goes,
Yeah. And I was listening to someone recently, and they click. They kind of like, so anyway, getting rid of that stuff. Yeah. And now just trying to figure out the actual logistics of, it's like, oh, but you put your RSS feed here. And I'm like, well, I don't really know where my RSS feed is or how to get it. So anyway, that's been kind of interesting.
No, I think we're all going through that. I've actually, on my way home today, at Best Buy, you know where that is, I'm stopping to pick up a Blue Yeti. Black and
I have one of those.
Do you have one of those? I don't know if I need one, but I'm going through peer pressure here. And I was talking to Shelley Pryor. I don't know if you know Shelley Pryor. She's a watercolorist that does a lot of teaching, and she just bought herself this really fancy webcam that actually has a 10 times optical zoom, so she can control it with a remote while she's filming. That's
pretty cool.
But it's like $600. So I'm trying to tell my little brain, you don't really need that.
Yeah, I had this concept of a podcast over 2 years ago. So my husband 2 years ago bought me the Yeti to do the podcast.
Right.
And it's great. It's just that I find that the way I've been doing talking to artists, I tend to be on the go. So I'm like sometimes in my car or the cottage. So it's kind of big to carry around.
Right? Yes, and that's the thing. Yeah, and you can get one that has an input for your phone. Which is kind of neat, but it's something else to carry around, right? We're all going to be carrying big.
Yeah.
Are they big?
Yeah, no, they're big and they're heavy. They're great. The sound quality is amazing.
Yeah, that's what
So
I
you
hear.
definitely get
People
better
say they
sound.
use them for voiceovers if they're doing
Yeah.
videos. So yeah, I'm trying to get set up right now. All I have for my webcams is I'm using the Logitech 922, which is really good. And they actually have a built-in mic. I did a little class the other day and a few people said they couldn't hear me, but that was probably just me mumbling to myself as I paint, right?
Yeah,
Probably obscenity, so it's a good thing they shouldn't hear.
exactly.
But trying to get the logistics and everything else set up for doing Zoom or virtual workshops. And it's not I always say watercolorists have it easy because they have one camera pointing down because they work flat. That's the
Yeah.
other thing you have to worry about online is these arms. And of course, if you work at an easel, there's no way to get that perfect shot at your easel without standing right in front of the camera. So
Well,
that's what I'm dealing with right now. So I'm trying to get the perfect setup to start
yeah.
doing some workshops because I haven't been teaching. I mean, I did the odd demo, but when you do those workshops, I was only doing 4 or 5 a year, but they're a good chunk of your income. So,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I didn't do really a workshop. I did more of a live demo over two sessions. I did a painting, and I paint flat. And so it's funny you say that it's easier because I'm like, wow, it'd be so much easier to be on an easel because the problem is that I have to be so careful. The camera just doesn't get the back of my head.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when I realized, wow, I'm really going gray. I have to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, Shelly was showing me her video yesterday, and as she's changing cameras, I went, "Oh, cleavage! You gotta be careful what you're watching, what you're wearing there, Shelly."
Yeah.
So
is this part of your? I noticed you got this mastermind program, which looks like it's more mentoring, and then behind the easel.
More mentoring, and that's the business end of it that I'm doing. I had my first group on Monday night. 2 of them have left already. They didn't need me. One of them is an excellent artist. He just needs to, he's probably listening, get off his doofus and do some work. And,
well, sometimes having that accountability is good.
Yeah, they didn't need me. So I'm more of emerging, teaching them how to write an artist statement. And it's also daunting, when you start off, and there are steps to do it. I keep saying you can't build your website until you have something to put in the website. So I'm trying to get them to do their bio and the artist statement and get their CV going. And so many artists think they don't need an artist statement, and yet galleries ask for it.
Yeah.
I was always surprised when I used to do the artist project, and remember the old art expo down at the convention center?
Yeah, I did that once.
Yeah. Part of my youth. I think that's part of growing pains of being a real artist. You're not a real artist until you do a pile of outdoor shows and indoor shows and trip and almost fire your husband and almost kill somebody and run somebody.
That's why I do it by myself.
Yeah, I used to, and my husband started helping me, and we actually got really good at it. We could have my whole booth down with the walls and everything, my tent, and be off the site in 10 minutes. We got so good at it. Yeah. After a while, it was really good, but now I don't have the energy to do the outdoor shows anymore. I have no desire to do them. I would rather drop off work at a gallery and let them do all that stuff.
Oh, see, I love to work with galleries. I'm dropping some stuff off at Petrov tomorrow, but I so miss the outdoor shows. Like,
yeah, I miss them too. But if I was 30 years ago, yes. Now by the time I got the tent up, I'd want a nap.
Yeah, I do it. Yeah, I do. It's like a friend of mine. She hires basically art minions. So she hires a team.
Yeah.
They set her booth up. And that's actually kind of a great way of doing it because, nobody really wants to have to put the tent up, but I like to be by myself when I'm hanging the work because no matter what kind of plan I have, it always changes, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, certainly it is nice to have help when you're kind of exhausted.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Especially if you're doing the one of a kind because it's so long. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, it's funny because that one wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
No?
And well, partially because I did a corporate, executive level events for many years. So when you are on your feet for hours and hours and you get 3 hours sleep a night for 6 days while you're doing these shows.
You get used to it, yeah.
It didn't seem so bad. And plus the fact that you don't have to schlep your art. You can just kind of, turn the light off and walk out the door was kind of bonus.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, the Toronto Outdoor Show, you had to take your art out at night. Yes.
Yeah.
I just double parked on Queen Street when I did that.
Oh, I did that too, yeah.
But
those are the tips that you need to know.
My booth was right on Queen Street. So it was, we were in and out of there pretty quick and we just dropped the booth down every night because it was my own tent. So, but I was very lucky that nothing happened to my tent. Very lucky. So, yeah.
So anyway, I want to go back to your mastermind program because I'm actually kind of interested in So I guess the weird question is what like I've seen a lot of these mastermind programs create. Is it a structure of mastermind, or is it something
It's
you kind of just decided to do, or?
No, this is actually done by a company called Leveling Up out in Calgary. And Julie DeBoer is,
Oh,
her
I
and her
know her
husband
name.
are doing it. Yeah, she's an artist.
Okay.
And he
Yeah.
already did this for corporate work. There's a lot of, corporate masterminding stuff out there to help your teams and all that teamwork stuff. I just yell at people. And so she decided with COVID and all these artists being stuck at home that this was an ideal time to start off a new program. And so they've done it, and they've got some really top artists doing it, some really great ones. And we meet once a month for 2 hours. And then I'm also meeting 2 weeks after that for a quickie session to, see how they're going and what they're doing. And we had the first one, like I said, on this past Monday, and it was good. Every artist wants to have their voice immediately and stand out. And I tried to explain to them, it doesn't work that way. Your voice finds you, you don't find your voice. And it takes a good 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Well, 20 years or 200 shows.
Yes, that's what I mean. If you're an artist that starts painting something and knows what your muse is right away, it's like, oh my God, you are so lucky. You have no idea. So I explained them to that. And like the first thing I got them to do was write their artist statement, because I said, you really have to do a lot of introspection to write your artist statement. It really makes you think about what it is that you're painting and why you're painting this. And if you're just painting, pretty flowers and landscapes and somebody's dog, then when you have to explain as to why you're painting this, there's a lot of introspection. So it will help them find out what it is that they're attracted to. And
what's your recommendation on? Because there's always this balance going back and forth between artist statements, where there are some that are so convoluted and ephemeral and transcendent and that people don't understand it, versus something that's more common language.
There's a great website. I think it's called Artsy Bullocks or Arty Bullocks. It just spews out this garbage that is absolutely
don't you think the scary thing is it's garbage, but then you're like, I swear I've read that artist statement before.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I'm sure
they make no sense.
Yeah. Some people have used it. Yeah. So what were you asking about?
I was just wondering what your thought was in terms of how, like, there seems to be a fine line between readability and kind of creating something that's a bit mysterious or otherworldly.
No, that's for, I think the fancier your wording, the lower your self-confidence. Keep it simple, and somebody should be able to read your artist statement and connect it with your work. And when I used to do the artist project, I would hang my artist statement as an experiment, and I was actually really surprised how many people went up and read it. Nobody read my bio, but everybody read the artist statement, and they would look at it, they would go up and read it, and then they'd stand back and they'd look at the art, and then they'd look at me, and then they'd look at the art, and then they'd read it again, and then they'd look, and they'd either shrug their head and walk away, or they'd go. And if it went like that, then I know that I connected with them. But it was funny because, they'd look at me with the crazy hair, and my paintings are pretty bright.
They're beautiful.
It was interesting to watch their facial expressions. It's like, oh yeah, she really is that weird. Yeah.
But I think that brings up another really good point, is that when you do your artist statement, it's true to you, and you connect with certain people that are going to connect with it. But there's a whole bunch of people out there that will never connect to your work, and they will never love it.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
That's the way it is,
right? You can't
right?
worry about that. No, you can't worry about that. That's why if that was the case, we would all paint like Trisha Romance, right? And the world would be very boring.
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody's different, and everybody has a different taste, and your taste changes too. As you get old. Or as your life experiences change, your taste changes, and so your art's going to change, and your artist statement is going to change as well. And that's the other thing I explained, is you can have 2 or 3 different artist statement depending on the body of work that you're working on, or what you're using it for. If you're applying for a major show, or if you're applying for a grant or something, then your artist statement is going to be different and change with that. but there is a lot of introspection. I just rewrote mine because I've been using the same one for years, and I thought, gee, that doesn't really fit anymore. So maybe it's time to walk the talk.
Is that the one that's on your website about kind of the chaotic, was it the chaotic vibrancy of Mother Earth?
Yes, yes.
I think that's a great phrase.
I was in a car with a friend of mine once, and we were driving around up near Huntsville, and we were sober because we were driving, and he started talking about what he saw in my art, and I'm like, can you record that? And he says, I don't have a clue what I just said, but it sounded fabulous. It was the word chaos that he used, which is true. My work is very chaotic, but I find now that my subject matter is the actual paint, the qualities of the paint and the surface tension and everything. The image that I'm using, to my jump off image is just a muse. It's just a means of getting to the end point, which is the paint. And I'm definitely getting more and more abstract for sure. Yeah. And I have some acrylics in my studio that I keep dreaming about doing these.
Acrylics are great.
Things. Yeah.
I know. I love acrylics because I love the fact that they don't take forever to dry.
Yes.
So first of all, I like the fact you kind of have to commit. For me, I like that commitment to color or where you put your colors down.
Yeah.
But also the fact that you can kind of go overplay them, because they're because you can really build those layers. But it's interesting because I want to say, because it's funny
about oil is you can drag a brush through it and then you get 8 different colors without trying very hard.
Yeah, I guess I do that on my palette knife directly. Like I mix my 8 colors on my knife.
I don't. I paint very much because I started watercolor years ago. I still do. I still mix with my brush on my palette. I don't use a palette knife, and I work very wet, and I do a lot of negative painting. Just call back to those years of working in watercolor with the happy accidents and the chucking paint. And at one point, not so much in the work I'm doing now, but when I was, I don't know, I like to think a couple of years ago, but it's probably more like 10. I used to actually start flat, and I was working on panel. So I would start flat and I would have the panels on sawhorses, and I would do like a watercolor only with OMS. And that was in my basement, which was probably not the smartest thing to do with the furnace around the corner. But I actually made like a watercolor in oil paint, and then I would flip it up and put some thicker brush strokes on it, which was really cool. Now I have an urge to do that again. I don't have room where I am now.
Well, I did that because I was trying, I work on panels, so it's about staining the birch panel, whatever. But I sort of wanted to work on canvas so I could work larger, and so I was actually and so I was doing the same thing where I was creating these watercolor kind of backgrounds on the canvases, which was super fun because it's very unpredictable when you kind of move the canvas around. It's very energetic somehow.
That's when you discover your floor is not perfectly level.
I know that. I try and do resin. I'm trying to do resin. I was just thinking with resin, and I'm like, that one I'm going to have to totally resin twice because I can't get it even with the floor. It's too even.
Yes, yeah. You need those little feet that screw up so you can level your surface. Yeah.
Sure. I totally have that. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't mind actually doing the resin, but it's the prep work to get everything even and straight and dust free. That's
I've never done it. Yeah. I'd have a hair in it, right in the middle.
I pull my hair back. I wear like a do-rag. It's just like your kid.
I very rarely wear my hair down. I was trying to decide what to do with it, if I was going to chop it short, because I've had my hair really, really short before, but I can't stand having my hair touch my face. So I think I'm just going to try and let it grow so I can just stick it up. Yeah, it drives me crazy. So it's
the reality is it gets in your hair anyway.
Hair like fiberglass. So if the end of a hair touches my skin, it's really pokey and irritating.
Oh, it's pokey.
Yeah, it's really pokey. It's quite painful. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Great fun. Yeah.
So you're doing your mastermind course, and you've got students doing that. So that's pretty cool. And so how long does that last for?
I think it's once a month, so it's as long as they want to go on. I mean, I could probably keep them busy for 10 years, right? So it's as long as they want to go on and when they feel that they can jump off and do their own. But a lot of the people that I'm working with now, they don't even have a website. So I'm trying to encourage them all to get an actual computer. Your iPad is not a computer. I don't care how fancy it is. It's not a computer.
Totally.
And really, if you're seriously going to get into doing videos and stuff like this eventually, which I think most professional artists are doing that, you actually need to flip from a laptop to a desktop. I just went to a desktop computer that's really fast, and my life is so much easier now. but trying to, I'm trying to get them, I may even give them a lesson on Photoshop elements. I just use the elements one to resize my artwork and stuff. I don't need the big fancy one. Give them a class on that and show them how to prepare their images to apply for some bigger juried shows, and send your works to galleries and get a body of work together and maybe do a solo show at some point, and all that stuff. Yeah. I'm just kind of teaching them what's in my book. Yeah.
Yeah, I know your book looks good. Actually, I was looking at it. Thinking, I should read that.
I think it's
always...
well. I wrote that book because I was asked once to do some jurying for the Society of Canadian Artists for new members, and I was surprised at the stuff that came through that actually made it to the point where I was at. Somebody had actually written their artist statement on a napkin and taken a photograph of it with their phone and sent that with their application. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a national organization. You should be a little bit more professional than that. And there's a proper layout for your CV, and you need letterhead, and you have to, it's a job. You have to look at it as that, because if you don't, you're not going to be in this, you can be a wonderful artist, but if you're not,
and I think that's where a lot of artists do fall down, because I'm sure they thought, it's so cool and creative, and it's like, your CV is not the place for creativity, right? It's a place for, like you say, it's a business communication. It has to be professional.
Absolutely, because galleries don't want to work with creative, flighty people. They want to work with somebody that's dependable and professional.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So and if you do that and you come across as professional, then you're less likely to run into issues too. When you submit your work, or if you drop off work at a gallery and you have a proper consignment sheet on proper letterhead, and my consignment sheet, because I'm still using this great program, actually puts down the wholesale amount as well. So there's retail and then wholesale. They know that I know what I'm expected to be paid. And because it's all laid out and I have a copy of it and I know where every painting of mine is, I will never go and say, has anybody seen this painting? I know where they all are. They're not going to take advantage of you because they know they can't.
Yeah.
So, and there are galleries that they're not unscrupulous. They're just messy at business as well. And if they're messy at business, then you can't be, and you need that contract to protect yourself. I had a friend once who was in a gallery, and she didn't have a contract because, back in the days, you didn't really do a contract, and the gallery had a fire. And fortunately she was, and I think the owner actually died or something, and she knew the son and the son knew her. It was a small area. And but because there was no consignment list, the insurance company just assumed that the gallery owned all the artwork. So you need that contract, if something happens, to prove that no, that work was there on consignment. It does not belong to the gallery. It belongs to me. It's being held in trust. So you got to protect yourself. You really do.
Well, I think the other part of that is, I think, is a big part, is you have to be responsible for your own business. You can't, we see this all the time at the Artist Network too, where, you sort of say, okay, to be in the show, your piece has to be wired. They show up without it wired. And they're like, I thought you'd do it for me. I'm like, all you're supposed to do is wire your painting. That's a pretty easy thing for you to do. Why is it you're comfortable with me taking a screwdriver to your art and putting wire on it when it's inappropriate, right? Exactly. So we started getting much more hard ass and kind of saying, I'm sorry, it's just not wired properly. I can't hang it, so it's not in the show. Yeah, and people get really pissed off.
That's one of the things that I wrote about in my book is doing shows, because we've all done shows where somebody's got their cooler and their coat and their purse and all their crap in the booth, and they're sitting in their booth, eating, and they're eating while they're talking to somebody,
or on their phones,
or they're on their phones. Which, I mean, you can, if you're gonna have your face in your phone, because there are lulls, hide it in a clipboard so it looks like you're doing something productive. I always had a clipboard around with some scribbles on it so that I looked like I was making notes and looking very busy.
That's good. I'm going to steal that one.
I used to have a password on that because that was before cell phones. I'm showing my age, because in the old days, and I always say, you guys have no idea. This is like walking through the snow and 10 feet of snow to school, right? When we used to have to put our work against a black fabric backdrop and actually take slides of it Do you remember?
Oh,
I don't know how
yeah,
old you are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I definitely, well, also I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I remember I just
Right.
came across my
Yes.
slides actually that I did for my
Yes.
practicum. It was interesting. I'm like, oh, what a
Yes.
pain in the ass that was.
Yes. And at one point in my basement, this was at our other house, I had two big 5,000 K lights to get proper lighting. And then you'd blow the bulbs right immediately because they weren't LED, they were
Yeah,
incandescent, and they'd get really hot and they'd only
they
last
cost a fortune.
they cost a fortune. And I had a neighbor knock on my door once going, "What are you doing? What are you doing in your basement?" Every now and then
Yeah.
we see enough light come out of there. They thought I had a grow up or something. It's like, no, I'm just photographing artwork. But, well, I mean, with the digital world, I mean, when you think about it, if you work from images, which a lot of us do, you can now go out, take a photograph, come into your house while that image is still hot in your brain, and get it on your computer and then get it up on a big screen. I have a 32-inch monitor that I use with my reference on it, and paint it within 5 minutes. And so that you
Yeah.
still have that urge to paint it. Because we used to take pictures and then, it would be 6 weeks later when you got your film developed, and then you'd look at the thing that you thought was so wonderful and you'd go, what the hell was I thinking? And you wasted $20 in getting your film developed in the film. So, I mean,
That's right.
the digital world, I mean, this is the best time to be an artist, right? You can
Yeah.
self-promote and sell yourself, and it's the best time to be an artist. Still need those bricks and mortar galleries, though. That they're never going to go away.
Yeah. Well, I think I always think, and I think the same way, given the number of galleries you're in as well, is that it's a combination of the two, right? Like I always think it's really important to have multiple annuity streams. So you have it through the different galleries, you have it through your commissions, you have it through your newsletter, you've got it through your studio.
Yes.
And I think that's really the only way I think that you can kind of really have a career as an artist that's going to bring enough money that you can actually pay the mortgage.
Yeah. You have to look at it as a business. You have to get up in the morning and have your coffee and then go out to the studio and start your work day. You can't sit down and put the TV on and decide, oh, maybe I'll go out and paint today. You got to put the work in. You got to go out and do it. And even if you don't paint every day, because artists do not paint every day, everybody thinks we do. We sit down and do paperwork and scrape paint off the floor and
clean your oil can.
and clean your oil can, yeah. But yeah, paperwork is a huge part of it, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of artists don't know what their artwork is. Do you use something to keep track of what you have and where it is? And
yeah, so I have most of my stuff actually is on my website, so that actually I keep track on my website of where things are and which galleries they're in, and I can put notes in there as when things have sold, but I also actually put it on the actual images. So if the image is with a certain gallery, I'll actually add that to the name of the
But do you
image.
have a software or anything on your computer where you can move stuff around and do consignments and stuff like that?
I don't. No, I know I've been talking, I know a lot of people use Art Archive.
Yeah, Artwork Archive, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use that. I've been looking at them. It's an online-based one, which I'm a little hesitant for that. I like to own my software and be in control of looking, making sure my stuff doesn't get deleted, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm just picky that way.
Yeah.
If it's going to get deleted, it's going to be my fault. And then I won't have to hurt anybody. So I'm using an old software that I'd love to get it going again. It's years ago I found it in Artist Magazine. In the back, remember they had those little, by the X-ray glasses kind of thing. Yeah. I found this artwork back there, and it's called Working Artist, and it only works on PC. That's the only issue with it. I'm a PC girl. I'm not a Mac girl.
Yeah, me too.
Even though I'm on an iPhone, but it's a fabulous program because it keeps track of where everything is. It keeps track of all your patrons, what paintings they have, where they are, what juried shows you've entered, your images are there. It's absolutely fabulous. So when I'm submitting a consignment, I pick the images, and then it does a report, and it's on my letterhead and my HST numbers there, and I email that to them with the images that are ready for their website, so they don't have to do anything and just put them on. And they have this sheet, and it's got the retail price and the wholesale price on it, so they know that I know what I'm supposed to get. And I just love it, and it's on my computer. So it's not web-based, but the problem is with it is that the woman that designed it, Catherine Townsend, if you're out there. So
Call out to Catherine Townsend.
I've been looking for that. I contacted several Catherine Townsend. She's an artist, and her husband was apparently a computer programmer. So she sold it to this other guy, and I can't remember his name. I'd have to go back through my emails, who had all these great ideas of making it cloud-based and work on a Mac, and not necessarily cloud-based, but an app that you could, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, and then I had been back and forth with him about it. And then I went to the website and there was nothing. And then I went to the Facebook page and there was one last post on it that said, my doctor says I shouldn't do this anymore. And then nothing.
Oh, wow.
So I'm thinking he's passed away. This was a few years ago. But I still have the program. And the only issue with it is that you can enter, in the trial version, you can enter up to 5 artworks, and then you had to buy a license, which was only $150, and you owned it for life. But I don't know how to, I mean, I don't want to make any money on this, although that would be nice, but I don't even know how to get a hold of the family. There's absolutely nothing out there. I don't know how, I guess you'd have to go to the American Patent Office or something to find out. I don't know.
Yeah, and of course the problem too is at some point those programs stop working as your computers get more advanced.
Well,
I've had a couple programs like that.
I mean, this is from like 1996, right?
Oh,
and
that's good.
It's access based, and I'm currently on my new computer. My iPhone's actually sitting on my screen of my old laptop, which still works, and I'm trying to clean it off so I can use it for travel. But I have a new desktop computer that's really powerful, and I'm using Office 365 on it. Because I paid for the program on this one, but apparently it won't let me use it on 2 computers.
Mine does.
Does it?
Yeah, you should be able to use it on 2 computers. Because I've got a Office 365 and I've got a Microsoft Surface device, which I love.
Oh yeah,
it's super
365
powerful.
I can. 365 I can, but not
I
the
see.
old 2013 that I actually paid for. So it's working with 365, no issues. I mean, every now and then, if Office does an upgrade, I may have to reinstall this program, but it has a little back data thing that I just jump it onto an external this little thing, which is a terabyte thing, and I store the backup data on that, and then I can just load it right back on again. And so I've had no issues with it. So I mean, I would love it if somebody could hack, is that the word? Get their hands on this program and get it going again, because it is really, really good.
Yeah,
but I think unfortunately,
the days of proprietary software are kind of over. I mean, because it's way easier to monetize a cloud-based solution as well, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, I mean, and it's not as powerful. I mean, for my books, I use QuickBooks Desktop, and that was recommended to me by my accountant. He said the desktop one is much better than the cloud-based one, and your stuff you're responsible for the security. So, you're not going to lose all your data or anything that's hanging around out there unless somebody hacks into your computer. Mm-hmm. So I use that. So I prefer. So as long as Working Artist keeps working on my computer, I'll probably keep using it. Although my brain tells me that I should look at something, because that's one of the things I'm going to push in this mastermind program is knowing where your artwork is. You're responsible for it. And I see so many artists that, post a picture of a painting on Instagram and say, this isn't in my studio. I thought it was. Does anybody know where it is? I have no record of where it is. And I'm just like, really?
Well, first of all, you shouldn't be doing that. Second of all, I'm not sure you should be telling the world that you're like a loser and can't figure out where your art is.
Yeah. Well, you can use a spreadsheet too. I think I actually Googled it. You can actually put an image in a spreadsheet, so you can.
I do that.
So you keep track on your computer. So I think you could use a spreadsheet, and that's probably the most universal thing that you could transfer from one computer to the other. Yeah,
because so then you can sort it and you can do things like that. I think for me it's a combination of my small pieces. You do so many of them that it's almost. You almost wonder if it's worthwhile to put them into a system. So I just upload them on my website.
And I don't even count anything that's under 24 inches. It's not in my inventory. Yeah, I'm like you. Bigger, better, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I like both extremes. Like I like doing the big ones. I do find the little ones for me are kind of cathartic. And if I don't really feel like doing a lot of painting, I can sit down and
and if you've got paint left,
sketch a few.
Right? Yeah. I used to do that. And then, of course, you wouldn't have quite enough paint left over, so you'd squish it a bit more. And then the next thing you know, it's midnight and you have 42 little ones because you just kept squishing paint out.
But I do love the I don't know, I guess the discipline too, though, of using all the paint on your palette, because invariably the colors that you love the most are the ones that are already gone,
Well, and
you end up with those other ones.
in acrylic, right? Because it goes, with oil.
It goes.
If I'm away if I know I'm not going to be in the studio for 3 or 4 days, I usually just scrape the paint off. Doesn't matter. Like with oil paint, it'll skin over, but it gets kind of lumpy and stuff like that. So I may save that and use it in an underpainting. First,
I know Julie Veenstra puts hers in the freezer, I think.
Yeah, that's my husband's territory. And my freezer is pretty full. I'd have to have a fridge in the studio to do that. I don't cook, so that's my husband's turf, and it would,
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yep, that seems like a pretty good sacrifice.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I paint so often, I really don't have much left over, and I just, I don't save my paint at the end of the day. I scrape it off and chuck it. Especially the dirty paint. If there's not much left and I know it's going to be dry in 2 days and I'm not going to get in the studio, there's no point in saving it. So
may as well.
Yeah. But I'm at that stage where buying paint is an expense, and my time and all this stuff is more important than trying to save a tablespoon of quinacridone red. Yeah, it's just
no, I do that too. I mean, part of it is I like the challenge of trying to, because I my palette I usually put out about, I don't know, 35 colors, different colors.
Yeah, because the way you work, right?
So I do like that part of it. But you're right. There's some times when you're like, I just don't feel like it, so I'm just not going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
So, and do you do actual painting classes as well, or workshops?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I started, I guess, about, I don't know. I wish these things seemed like 2 years ago, but they're more like 7 years ago, which means I'm losing my youth somewhere. I started.
It's okay to be a little bit delusional.
I started teaching a few years ago. I had a woman out in Vancouver that had been following me, and I did a demo for a group, and discovered that I'm not as uncomfortable speaking in front of people as I used to be. My big problem is controlling my mouth. I always warn people. There's cursing in this class.
That's right.
I know some people take my workshop just to see what's going to come out of my mouth. It's quite entertaining.
That's good.
Yeah. So I started teaching the odd workshop, and then this woman in Vancouver emailed me, and she says, I see that you're teaching now, so you're going to come out here. So I did, I think, 3 years out in more classes, please. I did 3 years out in Vancouver, which was a lot of fun. Vancouver Island is just, I mean, I love it. And I have friends out there, right? I don't know if you know John Day.
My sister's out there.
Yeah. So it was like, 5 days of teaching, but party every night, right, with your friends. So it's I love Vancouver Island. It's just gorgeous. I'm in a gallery out there now up in Q Beach, in Oceanside Gallery. They're doing quite well. Yeah. I'm hoping to get back there and meet her. But last time I went, I had an issue with my paint. I had always flown with my paint and never had an issue. But I did last time. So it kind of put me off a little bit. So
my sister did, because, obviously supplies are really expensive in Vancouver Island.
Right. Yes, they are.
And so when she comes to Toronto, because she does the Riverdale Art Walk and other shows in Toronto, the Artist Project, she'd buy a bunch of paint and then fly back with it.
Yeah.
But she got into trouble because the customs person said, well, it's paint, you can't fly with paint. And she's like, but it's only oil and pigment. Like, there's nothing flammable about it.
I know.
Yeah, and they eventually she had to leave it.
See, I've had no problems in Toronto, because Air Canada, it's actually on their mandate. I fly WestJet because my husband was getting points all the time, and I love WestJet. Mine was when I was coming home from Vancouver Island. I find the smaller airports like to pretend that they're important, and it wasn't so much that I got caught that pissed me off. It was the way they did it. I was actually, within 20 minutes of boarding, they called me. I had been sitting there for 2 hours, but within 20 minutes and they said, you have to go down to the desk. I had to go through security again. I almost missed the flight. And she said, well, you can arrange to have a courier pick it up. And I'm like, I'm boarding in 20 minutes. How am I going to do this? I don't even have a way to pack it, because it was just in a plastic bag. It was packed as it's supposed to be. But I didn't have a box or anything. And I'm thinking, the airport could have said, give us your address, for $50 right now, on top of the shipping, we'll offer that service of shipping it for you. But they don't do that. Think of the money they could make if they did that. I would have said, sure, here's the $50, do it as long as I get it home. Fortunately, the woman that ran the workshop, I mean, Vancouver Island is so small, she was only 10 minutes away. And by the time my flight had taken off, she had whipped down and picked up the paint, and then she shipped it back to me.
Oh, that's nice.
But if she hadn't had that, I would have lost about $600 worth of paint.
Yeah.
I was there for a week, so I had all full tubes with me. Yeah. So I was
painful.
Quite upset at the way that was handled. So if I were ever to go out there again, I think I would ship it out and then ship it back. Which just means you need twice as much paint because you have to have your paint at home to work with. Yeah. So I would do that again. I would never try and fly with oil paint. It's too difficult until they fix their mandate.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is part of it is that people just don't understand.
No,
it's just
they
like
don't. But
the
Air
intention
Canada,
is
Air Canada does. It's the smaller airlines, and they should. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Helen was probably flying WestJet. I always fly Air Canada, so I haven't really had a problem. And then at the other end, I fly out of Comox Airport, and Comox is so small, and Helen knows most of the people there that I never found there's an issue. But I also didn't think I was doing anything wrong either, so it's not like I felt I was being deceitfully customs.
I didn't think I was doing anything wrong either. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't arrest me. There was the mouth again. And it was just like, I'm getting on a plane in 20 minutes, and you want me to call? I was absolutely furious. At the way they handled it. I mean, I can understand if they don't understand about oil paint, but if they had offered that service, we have your address on your boarding pass. We'll ship that to you, but there will be a $50 surcharge, or even if there'd been $100 surcharge, because if I hadn't had Mary there to come and save my bacon that day, I would have been out about $600. What do you do? I mean, I had friends out there I could have called, but depending on where they were, if they were up in Nanaimo and I'm at Victoria Airport,
that's a long way.
It's a long way. And if it's winter, they got to get down the Malahat. So yeah, there was that issue. But yeah, so after that, I do about 3 or 4 workshops a year, not too many. And I do a 2 days intensive. And I usually rent a hall somewhere. I don't have room in my studio, and I don't really want to start doing that. So my idea was to travel around and rent these small halls because it's good for the halls. And then I could travel to areas so that the people taking the workshop would not have to travel as much, because that's an expense, right? Well, it didn't work out that way. When I rented one hall north of London, and I had people fly in from Kelowna. And when I do Bloomfield, I have people that drive from Windsor. I had one woman drive up from the States. She comes quite a bit.
Wow.
She'll drive anywhere. So that just kind of, went out the window. I rent the halls that I like. There's a great little hall in Bloomfield called the Baxter Art Center that has great lighting, and it's wonderful, and it's cheap. I mean, cheap's important, right? Because if you're renting a hall from a government building, you're looking at $1,500, whereas I can rent from these little, supporters of local, because there's all these little town halls, right, in all these little villages, and you can rent one of those usually for $200 or $300 for 2 days. And you have to set up your tables and stuff yourself, but I usually just have a helper come that gets the workshop for free, and I serve coffee and cookies, and we do it there, and I just make sure that the stuff can stay set up all night, and then take it down the next day. And it's good. Yeah. And because I'm organizing them myself, of course, there's more, take home, but there's more work involved for sure as well.
Yeah.
So, and I've been hired by a few groups to do too. Yeah. So I'm doing that too. I had like 6 books last year, so I went down to nothing. So I'm finally getting my button gear, doing I have my first virtual workshop on the 18th and 19th of February. And I'm doing it via Zoom right now, although I may change at some point. It's 2 days. I'm staying with the same format. I've had a few people say, well, why can't you do it for 2 hours every day? And I said, well, because it's oil paint, and the oil paint will get sticky, and you'll go walk your dog and do something and forget where your mindset was. Once you get into a painting, and I'm trying to teach you something, you got to stay there with it, right? Because it doesn't work if because it usually takes an artist 2 hours for their brain to settle down and actually get some work done. So I'm doing that, and I'm limiting it to 10 people in the class, and it sold out in an hour.
That's amazing.
I was
Congratulations.
gobsmacked. I have 8 people on a waiting list for another one. So so I've ordered a good microphone and I've ordered another camera. So, but my studio is really, really small. So I'm trying to find a way to set up cameras and stuff so that my back, you know, I'm not in the way of the camera so they can see the painting. So logistics are an issue. But I found this fabulous software for teaching art, and it's free. So it's really good. So I have found it. So I have sorted out the camera on the palette part because everybody wants to see you mix your paint, right? So now I just need to work out camera placement at the easel, hopefully without knocking over the tripod. And my painting space is only about 10 feet by 10 feet. And you know how big I paint, right? Like my easel is 48 feet wide. And of course, when you have all these cameras, you have all these wires and everything. So trying not to cause an accident. So we're actually, my studio is in my garage. It's only 21 by 11. It's very small. We're actually looking at some prices of making it bigger. But our property is on a hill, so it's not just a matter of pouring another slab and putting an addition on. It would actually almost like be a 2-story building. So we need to build a foundation on a hill and everything. So it depending on the quote we get, it's like, no. So, you know, it's usually, the space is good. You know, if I'm not building up a lot of artwork, it's okay. Because usually as I finish painting, the artwork goes in, you know. So I have people that will say, well, can I come to your gallery and look at a piece? Because occasionally I will sell a piece out of the studio, always for the same price the gallery sell it for.
Absolutely.
And they always say, well, can we come to your studio? And go, yeah, but don't wear your good clothes. Because this is not a gallery. This is a working studio. And you're going to walk in and go, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Is it safe?
But I think people love that too, don't they? I mean, I find that people do. It's like when I sell a piece, sometimes people want to come.
They go like this, and then they go, can you pull that one out? And it's like, oh my God, there's like 45 paintings in front of it. Yeah. And they're heavy, right? Yeah. So, yeah. But it's happened, and they do, they like it,
I think it's that whole getting behind the scenes of sort of understanding, you know, what the working life of an artist is really like,
absolutely,
right? Like,
yes.
I find that with art alchemy too.
I've had 2 really neat experiences. I had this was years ago when I used to do the outdoor shows. I had an accountant buy a painting of mine, and he bought a couple, and at one point I was doing the Halliburton outdoor art show. I don't know if you remember that one. It used to be a really good show in its time.
Jamie McLean does that, I think.
Yeah, does he still do? Is it still going on? I thought it was canceled. I think
I'm not sure.
I think it's done. But I did it for many years. That's where I was taught to put up my flat by myself. And this guy came in my booth once, and I thought I recognized him. I'm absolutely horrendous with faces. And it was actually my husband, because at that point he was coming with me, that said, no, that's the guy from Uxbridge that's bought your paintings. And he was just standing in my tent, kind of looking around. And finally I went up to him, and I couldn't figure out what he was, looking at. And I finally went up to him and said, can I help you? And he says, no, I have 3 of your paintings. He says, I'm just absorbing it. Because his life is so left-brained that all he did was stand in the corner and listen to me yabber on in my, and deal with people. And I guess there was that part of life that he didn't have, because his life was very structured. That's the way his job was, and sterile office and everything. And it was like, after he told me that, he says, no, just ignore me. I'm not going to buy anything. I just came to suck it all in. I've got 3 of your pieces. So it was like, oh, okay, all right, fine. So I just let him hang around. I said, you can go sit in the back if you want to. And he says, no, I like standing here. I can smell the paintings. Yeah. Or
I have that too with people that love my work and they want a big piece, but they're not quite at that point where they can afford it. So they come and visit their work.
Oh,
every show. And then years later, they're finally like, I'm finally ready, and I've looked at enough pieces. I know what I want.
And you have to realize that when you paint large and you paint bright, and your work is a little kind of in your face. It's not your average pretty landscape. It, you know, kind of like mine hits people over the head and drags them around the corner when they first see it, right? They have to get over that shock a little bit. It takes them a while to build that and to rationalize spending that kind of money too, right? I can't afford my work, so yeah.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're going to be living with this for a long time, and it takes up a lot of space in your in your home. So you have to be sure that that's what you love. Yeah,
I had this years ago, and it was an acrylic. I did this huge painting. I think it was 40 by 60, which is not huge now, but back then it was. And it was when I was doing my Sky series that I like this is probably 20 years ago, and it was a large purple sky, and it was done with iridescent paint, and it was quite neat. My cousin ended up buying it, but this guy absolutely came to my booth at Halliburton, and that's okay.
Sorry, you know what? That's our 55 minutes, so that's our time.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Do it again sometime.
Absolutely, I could have talked for another hour. It was great. Yeah,
it was great. Yeah.
So your website will have your courses and your mastermind program and everything on it.
Yep. There's links to everything on there. And I have if you're interested in being in a workshop, I have two mailing lists. One of them is on the workshop page. That's the one for workshops. And if you're not signed up, because I always send out an email first, so that those people that they're on my mailing list, they get first dibs, and it almost always fills up. Oh, the only other thing I'm going to say is that this summer I'm actually booked to teach a live workshop, and I haven't put out the information yet. It's going to be going out soon. I am doing it in Bayfield over on Lake Huron. Nice. And I'm doing it as a favor. We're working it out so that I can donate the funds back to them. And it's Bayfield Center of the Arts. They're trying to get this wonderful Center of the Arts that will actually have professional art shows and theater and everything else. So I'm going to be doing a 2-day workshop there. And it's not through my mailing list, it's through them. So if you're interested in that, keep your eyes peeled. Information for that should be coming soon.
And watch your Instagram. Okay, I'm sorry, I really have to cut off, because if I don't cut off, then we might not be able to keep it.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much. I've loved that. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was a great conversation with Sheila. Honestly, could have talked to her for like another couple hours, as I'm sure that you guys could have too. So anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for joining me today. And we've got next week at Talking to Artists will be episode 36. And we're talking to Renato Fote, who is a glass artist. He does some really phenomenal stuff. So I will say goodbye and have a fabulous week. Be creative.